So Apple has a total of 6 iPads to choose from. iPad 9, iPad 10, iPad Pro, iPad Air. I understand it can be confusing. So that is why I created this video to help you decide which iPad is best suitable for you. Let's get to it. Welcome to Aipods. My name is Musanziane. So in this video, I'll take you through all the available iPads that you can buy brand new today, and I'll let you know who each iPad is best suitable for and the price that you can pay and the disadvantages and advantages of each iPad. And by the end of this video, you should be able to decide which iPad is best suitable for you. So this video is part of a buyer's guide series of videos that I've created. So if you're looking to buy any other Apple products such as iPhone, Apple Watch, Aipods, then look at the description below. You should be able to find a link that is going to take you to the specific video. So there are 4 main uses for an iPad, and to help you decide quicker, you should know what you want to use your iPad for. So these 4 main uses are: 1, for entertainment such as Netflix, Showmax, YouTube, DSTV, you name them. And then 2 is productivity. So this can be your schoolwork, journaling, or reading books, or planning, Zoom meetings, Teams meetings, or calendars. And then 3, it can be for creating content and managing your content. So you can use the iPad for editing videos. And then number 4, it can be for gaming or mobile gaming, whatever you want to call it. So it's good to know what is the main thing that you want to do with your iPad. This will help you decide quicker, because as I take you through the list of available iPads, you'll be able to identify which iPad will best suit your need. So we'll start with the cheapest iPad that you can buy today, and that is the iPad 9th generation, aka budget iPad. You can buy this iPad starting from 6,500 for a 64 gig storage. Now, I've always been a big fan of budget iPads, obviously because they are affordable and they give the best value for money. So I started off with the iPad 6, and then I moved to iPad 7th generation, and then I skipped the 8, and then I used the iPad 9. So the iPad 9th generation has the old classic body design that has got a home button and a fingerprint scanner. So this design does look a little bit old, but it does not look or feel cheap in any way. It is still premium, as you know, Apple products, premium. It is still a very good, high quality premium product. And then the other disadvantage of this iPad is that it does not have a laminated display. So that means that the display has a bit of a gap between the pixels and the actual display. But I can tell you that this is something that if you didn't know that it exists, you won't notice the difference. And it's something that you forget about it. The only time that I think about it is when I'm watching YouTube videos and I'm watching YouTube content creators talking about it. Other than that, I don't feel it getting into my experience in any way. So things such as when you are writing with a pencil, there is a bit of a latency there because of that whole gap. But like I said, you forget about these things as you use the iPad. And if you haven't used any other iPad, you probably won't notice any difference there. So it is a downside, but it's something that you can live with. And then in terms of the advantages of this iPad is that it has that fingerprint and that home button. So this can be good for people who prefer to have that physical home button and the fingerprint scanner there. And then it is the only iPad right now that has an audio jack. So if you have all the earphones or the wired AirPods, you can still use those. So that audio jack there does come in handy in some situations. And this iPad still has a lightning port to charge. Now, why is this an advantage? It is an advantage because right now iPhones still use lightning ports. So it means that you can use one charger to charge both your iPhone and your iPad. The other advantage is that it uses Apple Pencil 1, which is a bit older, but it gets the job done, and it is cheaper than the Apple Pencil 2. And the experience is pretty much similar to the Apple Pencil 2. And this is one of the other things that you forget about, or if you didn't know, you won't actually notice a difference. So who should be buying the iPad 9th generation? Well, it can be anyone who is on a budget and they just need a device that they can use either to watch YouTube or to watch TV or to watch movies on. And then also for planning your day, for journaling, it is actually a good device, and for reading as well. And of course, it is good for elderly people because they will find it easier to use because of the home button and the fingerprint scanner thing. Then the other group of people is students. I actually made a whole video where I explained why the iPad 9th generation is best for students. So if you look on the description below, I will include the link to that video there. So these are all the people that can buy the iPad 9th generation. So moving on to the next iPad, and that is the iPad 10th generation. So the iPad 10th generation is supposed to be the latest budget iPad, but it is not because of the pricing. It was supposed to replace iPad 9th generation, but it didn't, and Apple clearly saw that. That is why they haven't discontinued the iPad 9th generation. So the iPad 10 is not a budget iPad. It is a newer iPad and it is on a segment of its own. So the iPad 10th generation has got a newer body design which is similar to the iPad Air and the iPad Pro, but the screen is non-laminated, so it still has that gap there in between the pixels and the screen. It also comes with USB-C, which is an advantage and also a disadvantage. So in terms of disadvantage, I've already explained to you that it's good to always have the same charger as for your iPhone as well. So this means that it uses a different charger. And then in terms of the advantage, obviously it has moved to USB-C, which means that it's going to support newer accessories and it's also going to charge a bit faster, and transfer speeds are supposed to be increased a bit when you compare it to the 9th generation. And then something special about this iPad is that the front camera, it is actually centered in the middle and not on the sides. So it is centered in the middle and not on the sides or at the bottom or the top. So this is the only iPad that has this. And if you have been in a Zoom call or FaceTime call or whatever, using any other iPad, you will notice how this can be a bit frustrating, because when you look at the screen, it may slightly look like you are looking sideways. So it's difficult to actually, and when you try to look at the camera, then you can't see what is on the screen. So it can be confusing in that sense. So this is one advantage of this iPad 10 right there. This iPad also packs an A14 Bionic chip, which is a little bit faster than the A13 that you find on the iPad 9th generation. So that means that for games, it should be a bit faster. It also has a faster Bluetooth and Wi-Fi 6. And another advantage and disadvantage at the same time is that it supports this new Smart Folio keyboard, but that keyboard is very pricey. It costs almost half of what you pay for the iPad. So the iPad 10th generation will cost you 10,000 rands, but that Folio keyboard will cost you somewhere around 5,500 rands. That is slightly more than half of what you would have paid for the iPad. So that is a disadvantage on its own, because the minute you start adding that type of an expensive accessory, now the price of the iPad 10th gen moves closer to maybe a MacBook Air, and then now you find yourself in a situation where you have to decide whether you're getting a MacBook Air, which will give you more value, or you're getting an iPad 10th generation. And it still only supports Apple Pencil 1, so it doesn't support Apple Pencil 2 despite the modern design. So you won't be able to experience the Apple Pencil 2, which I don't think is a big deal for me. And then to pair the pencil and to charge the pencil, you need an extra adapter. So with the previous pencil you could just easily slot it on the lightning port there, which is weird, but it was easy to do, and you could do it on your iPhone as well. So for iPad 10, you need some sort of an adapter, which I understand can be painful, especially when you need to pair and to charge. So having to carry an extra adapter there, that is another disadvantage of this whole iPad. But like I said, you get used to these things. So I'd recommend the iPad 10th generation for people who want to buy a modern looking iPad, but they don't have 14,000 to spend on the iPad Air. And also they say they want a brand new iPad, because I would recommend the iPad Air 4, which will be cheaper, but it's going to be pre-owned. So if you say you don't like pre-owned items, you want something new, but you don't have 14,000, then you can spend that 10,000 there to go for the iPad 10th generation. And then next we have the iPad Air. So the iPad Air is the middle ground between the budget iPad and the iPad Pro. So if you want everything that the budget iPad can offer, and you want some of the features from the iPad Pro, then the iPad Air is for you. So some of these features include a laminated display, and then also Apple Pencil 2 support. And also the iPad Air 5 is powered by an M1 chip. So the M1 chip is part of the new Apple Silicon processor. So the iPad Air 5 will cost you somewhere around 13,800. But the disadvantage is that the iPad Air still does not have that 120 refresh rate. So that is strictly exclusive to the iPad Pro. And the rear camera, it only has one. But I don't know why you would want to use a camera on your iPad. The only time that I use it is maybe when I scan documents, but I don't think you need a Pro camera for that. So I use an iPad Air myself. So the iPad Air is good for when you are on a budget. You don't want to spend over 15,000 to get the iPad Pro, but you do want some of the Pro features such as the Apple Pencil 2 support. Then the iPad Air is the right one for you. So this is the middle ground, like I said. Now moving on to the iPad Pros, there are two options for the iPad Pro. There is iPad Pro 11-inch and iPad Pro 12.9-inch. The iPad Pro is the most powerful and the most complete iPad out there. But again, that means that it is the most expensive, starting from 18,300 for the 11-inch with 128 gig of storage, and the 12.9-inch starting from 25,000 rands. These are pro devices for pro users. So these are for people who want to do like intense video editing, and then maybe also music production and stuff that need a lot of hardware and a lot of storage as well, because you can go up to 2 terabytes. But a 12.9-inch 2 terabyte will cost you 50,000 rands. So these are for creatives and pro users. So the iPad Pro also has pro cameras, which are 2 cameras. Like I said, I don't know why you would want to use cameras, but yeah, it has advanced cameras. And then also, as I've mentioned, 120 refresh rate, laminated display, all the power, all the RAM, all the hardware, all the storage that you need. So if you want the best of the best, you are getting yourself an iPad Pro. And the Pros, of course, will support DaVinci Resolve. And these are iPads that should potentially last you for the next 5 to 8 years. And there is another iPad, the iPad mini. I put this iPad last because I don't know why this iPad exists. It's almost like the iPad 10th generation. Pretty much a segment of its own. But anyway, the iPad mini is, as the name states, is a smaller iPad. It has a smaller 8-inch screen and it packs an A15 Bionic chip. So it is faster than the iPad 10 and the iPad 9, but it's smaller. So my very first iPad was an iPad mini. I think this was in 2015. So I was still an Android user at the time, and I was slowly moving to iOS. And then the best way to experience iOS at that time was to get an iPad mini. So I got my first iPad mini. It was good at that time because I could use it for entertainment and also just to experience iOS. So back then it made sense, and also the pricing at that point was good to look at it that way, to see it as just a device to introduce you to iOS. But right now the pricing for the iPad mini is different. So the new iPad mini actually costs more than the iPad 10th generation. So I can no longer say the same thing to say you can buy the iPad mini if you want to jump into iOS and start experiencing iOS. I can recommend this for kids. I think if your kids want an iPhone but you don't want to get them an iPhone, instead you want to get them an iPad, I think this will be a good iPad because of its size. So they can be able to easily draw on it, and they can also watch content on it, YouTube, and they can carry it around easily. But again, I think for people who do have the money to spend and they say, I just want a small device that I can use to read books, that I can travel with easily, maybe read books on the plane or watch content or play a bit of mobile gaming, I'd say that group of people can also look at the iPad mini. So the price for the iPad mini is somewhere around 11.4. That is one disadvantage. And then the other disadvantage, I'd say that the size being small means that this is not the best iPad for productivity. All the other iPads, you can actually buy accessories such as your keyboard, your mouse, and you can potentially use them as a mini PC. But with the iPad mini, you cannot do that. I think the screen will be too small to use it as a mini PC or as a temporary PC. And that is the whole list. So something just to mention, on all of these iPads, to make them better, you will need to spend on accessories as well. So when you factor in the pricing, just look also at the accessories. So you will need an Apple Pencil if you want to use it for productivity. That is a very good tool. I use it all the time. And then you will also need a cover and a screen guard, obviously. And then you might also need to factor in a keyboard and a mouse to actually get more out of your iPad. So this is something that you need to factor in when you look at the price for your iPad. And that is it. We've come to the end of this list. So let me know what you think on the comments below. Which iPad are you going for? And I hope right now you are able to make the right decision. Don't forget to hit like and to subscribe. I'll catch you on the next video.